Is this an adventure or what? We don't need unexplained phenomena. I hope you guys are enjoying this journey we're taking you on. I know you come expecting to hear about big cats, cryptids, UFOs. We will touch on some of that, but I think it's worth sharing some of this with you, don't you? There's only 2 living souls up here today.
Because I can see it in my mind, I can see it in my head what I saw, but I can't describe.
Our eyes was closed, like a brightish light in my face, and I just felt paralysed.
Someone said there's something out there, so we had a look. It looked like a walnut. That's the only way I can describe it.
It was like it had loads of tiny little windows all over it, and it had lights in those windows, but not a light that illuminates.
Anyway, we were ushered into this lounge. This fella come in and said, whatever you saw was a weather effect.
And everything is deathly silent. There's no sea, there's no wind, there's no night noise, because, you know, there's foxes all over here. There's nothing.
Hello, everybody, and hope you've all had a great weekend, and welcome to Truth Proof on a Sunday. Soon comes round, doesn't it? And tonight I'm going to be talking with James Koppert, and I'm really looking forward to that. I've met James a few times, and he's a great guy, and I'm sure you'll enjoy listening to what he's got to share with us and his views on the subject of unexplained phenomena. So that's all good. So we'll be doing that in the next few minutes. So but let's have a look who we've got in chat. So what's this? Eric. I'm not even going to pronounce Eric. I'll just do that bit. Michael Turnbull's in chat. Good to see you, Michael. I know where you parked up, actually, Michael. So had a few natters on and off all day. Let's have a look. Ian Linney. Good to see you, Ian. I think Pete will be in. Mia Girl, Mrs. Linney. Let's have a look. Ian's in. Good to see you, Ian. That's another Ian, and maybe see you in this week. Jim's doing moderating. Janice is in. Space Cow. Did I see Rick Allen then? I thought I might have done. Fourth Vibration, Purple Pipkin, Lee Hopkins, Keyfor Wales. Let's have a look. I think Dragonborn's in. And I know Lee's doing moderating. I'm not sure if Alison's in, but if you are, yeah, great. Thanks for support, guys. Doc Martin, Thudder. I'm going to have to stop, aren't I? Because we've got 214 people here, and you know I'm not going to do it. We'll have a bit of a name shout. Oh, Laura's in. My daughter, Laura. I have to say hello to Laura because usually I miss it because she's working and she's in early tonight. So good to see you, Laura. She's my favourite, Laura. Gemma's doing moderating. She's my other daughter, but Laura's my favourite. You know I'm only kidding before you jump all over me. Don't have favourites, not with daughters. Tom Waters, good to see you, Tom. Okay, then, let's get to it. We'll bring James in and see what he's got to share with us. Remember, guys, it's your live stream Sunday night, so we want some questions in capital letters. James is going to share the information or share his views on the unexplained and his own experiences, but hit him with some questions, capital letters, and if I don't get to them all, don't blame me. But that's what we like to lead the talk with, the capital letters in the questions, and just fire them at us, please. So let's get James in. How are you doing, James?
Good evening. How are you?
I'm very good, and thank you for coming on and agreeing to share a few things with us. We met probably, 2 or 3 months ago, you, Ian, Linney, at Scarborough, when we all did a talk there, didn't we? And in fact, before we start jumping into this, that covered all sorts of things, didn't it, that talk? Do they plan on doing another?
Yeah, we're hopefully going to do one at the Sci-Fi Festival. So if you want to come down, that'll be an even bigger audience. So make sure you get your tickets for that with Ian and Jordan from the absolutely brilliant Two Guys What's Up podcast. Absolutely love their stuff. Yeah, so it should be a really good event.
Yeah, shout out for Ian and Jordan because they were good fellas. In fact, we ought to get them on here and they can share a few of their stories. And I see you've got a friend with you, haven't you?
Yeah, Pumpkin Cat always joins me on the streams. Yeah.
Superb. So jump into it. I mean, when you spoke at that talk there that we did in Scarborough, I mean, I'd spoke to you on and off for years, but we'd not met, had we? You know, we'd spoken for years, but we'd not met. And I think your genre, if unless I stand to be corrected, is your art probably is with the ghosts and the spirit type phenomena, isn't it?
Yeah, fascinated with the poltergeist activity more than anything. But then I've always had it and explored it and trying to, first of all, but not be scared of it, and then try and find answers. And when I couldn't find answers, then trying to find out, well, what does it mean philosophically? But then that's led on to pretty much everything in the Fortean genre kind of occurring and researching. Yeah.
Are you on the same lines then? Do you think that there's a thread running through it all that connects all of the unexplained?
There definitely seems to be, because when you have that acceptance of whatever it is, then you do seem to just get a bit of everything, and you'll start seeing UFOs, you'll start seeing things that you can't even categorize, including just what some people call glitches in the matrix. I've had a few of them where things just don't make sense and it's impossible to occur.
There's a glitch in the matrix. They look
not a great smell at the moment.
No, you're just facing a cat's backside, but there you go. These things happen. So take us back then. Let's just jump back to where your interest started.
I've literally been researching, if you could call it that, since I was probably 5 years old, and I got my first book on it.
Thank you, Jojo. Go on. Ignore me.
So even before I have memories, my parents would talk about things occurring. Like one of the stories my dad tells, I was just by this wall and the wall started heating up and then the plaster shot off. And I used to talk to this little girl in one of our houses called Aggie, and my parents thought it was an imaginary friend until we play hide and seek and they could see a figure behind the curtains and hear voices talking back. So, and I actually named my daughter after her, but which some people might find strange. But yeah, and that was only in that house. It wasn't an imaginary friend anywhere else. It was in that house, and when we moved, it never occurred again. So that there was always kind of that going on. And I woke up one morning and when I lived in Finham and saw a residual, it'll be, but this Roman soldier just stood kind of knees up in my bedroom. And later on research, we found there was a signal tower in that area.
Right.
But
so you didn't see him from calves down. You just saw him from knees up.
Yeah, just from the floor. Yeah. And slightly translucent. And I made the mistake of telling people at school and got called Ghost Boy for the rest of my time there.
Yeah, I noticed that your YouTube, what's it called? Ghost Boy, is it?
Confessions of a Ghost Boy, yeah.
Yeah. So that's kind of stuck with you. Let's just jump back to this, the poltergeist, the imaginary friend.
Yeah.
Because do you think you're doing it a disservice saying, do you believe it were imaginary?
I think when we look at imaginary friends, they're kind of everywhere. And this was just in one house and it stopped when we moved. And there's a great book called Invisikids, and I was after it for years ago, and I couldn't get a copy, and they've just republished it. And that's about this these strange kind of categorizations of imaginary friends that don't seem to be imaginary friends. And some of them seem to be fae, some of them potentially spirits. Some of them seem to have messages and guidance for the children that are involved with them. So, but yeah, we used to just play. I remember.
What memories do you retain of that? I've got no memories of any imaginary friends, but lots of people do. But you hear of other people where the parents or the older siblings will talk about their younger brother or sister, or parents talking about their son, daughter having an imaginary friend. But it seems those memories seem to dissipate as the child gets older. Not with everybody, your example, but what do you retain of it? I'm trying to get to, we're using the word imaginary friend, and I don't think that truly you think it was imaginary.
No, and it's hard to tell because some of my memories might have been installed by my parents telling me about these experiences. So it's hard to kind of separate the two, obviously, with that age. But we used to play hide and seek a lot. And my parents said as well, I used to go to bed and I never went to bed. I've got ADHD and I used to sleep 1 hour a day when I was that age. So they were like, this is peculiar. And but that they'd hear me chatting away, and then after a while they started hearing another voice, and they'd open the door and like, who are you talking to? And I say, oh, Aggie, and I'd just be sat on the floor chatting away to someone, but they'd never hear the voice when they're in the room, only when they were behind the door.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? It really is. Got a question here, and I'm assuming it's sort of aimed at you or both of us. Have you been given any natural scientific reasons for the orb phenomena? All magic is science we don't understand. Yeah, a good point there. There does seem to be a link between different phenomena. I would agree, needs sleep. I definitely think there's a link between it all. But have you any thoughts on that, James?
I think there's so many different categories, isn't there? And I mean, one of the banes of a paranormal investigator's life is I get sent orbs pictures probably about every single day, and it's dust or moths or something like that with light reflecting off it most of the time. But sometimes the one that I saw was like a golden golf ball of the same size, and that that obviously wasn't dust, and that was a visual thing not caught on camera. I think some of it is ball lightning seems to occur, and that sometimes has some strange, seemingly intelligent way of moving about and following certain people.
Well, what you saw in Raincliff Woods, I mean, we covered it in a YouTube short, but for those that didn't see it, briefly give us a description. What did you see? The red orb? Yeah,
it was so bizarre because it's not like anything I've read or heard about before either. But I was driving in Raincliff Woods at night, and I slammed my brakes on and felt fear. And I was like, well, this is strange. Why did I, slam my brakes? And I wasn't approaching anything, but just my instinct took over and I did it. And then as I set off again, I stopped because there was this sphere of light about the size of a football, and it was kind of like a reddy orange color, and it had tendrils, but they weren't attached. So there was like a gap in between this orb and these tendrils coming down. And it just slowly weaved in and out the trees and then slowed right in front of my car. And then when it got to the other side of the woods, it zipped really fast up through the trees. So like definitely some intelligence.
I was just thinking that implies intelligence. It's a drone with some kind of obstacle avoidance. It's flying in the dead of night. There's no streetlights. There's nothing there, is there?
No. It was pitch. Other than my lights of the car, it was pitch black. But somehow managed to weave in between there. I mean, even if I was practicing a drone flying, for years, I don't think I could weave through the trees that fast when it zipped up the other way.
No. So you're right about that implied intelligence to these things, and there's an element to it all. Everything. I mean, you just correct me with your views if you think I'm wrong, but my views are there's an element of none of it wants to be seen. It kind of wants to show you, but always on its terms. And soon as you decide you're going to try and get a little bit of evidence, it switches off.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've Matt and I have been out and we've done paranormal investigations. We've had nothing all night, and then as soon as we turn the cameras off, it all happens because there's no evidence. And I believe, this is my view, that is for you. And people often say to me, why, with all the new cameras and everything, why aren't we getting more? And I was like, well, we are. But the problem is the more technology we get, the more technology we get to fake. So no matter how realistic it is, people are never going to quite believe. But then that's for you to experience, and then for you to take it in and perceive what it is and what it means. That's what I believe.
Yeah, and I think it's a great way to look at it. And just staying with orbs momentarily, you were on about you get sent lots of pictures of orbs, and I occasionally get pictures of orbs. To be honest with you, I dread it. Please, people in chat, we've got over 300 people here. Don't stop sending pictures. But some of them, they've not seen these when they've taken the pictures, and it's almost like they're looking for something within the orb. And if you blow it up with best will in world, you can see faces if you want to see faces, and. Yeah. It's pareidolia, most of it, I believe. I don't think that there's little beings floating about in these orbs necessarily. Do you know? Although somebody might think different, or somebody might be able to prove me wrong. But I like the fact that what you saw in Raincliff Woods, you actually saw. Some of the things that we've seen along East and North Yorkshire coastline, we've seen with our own eyes. We've not found them in photographs afterwards. It's almost like it fits the narrative of what you want to talk about, and there's this strange light in here in this picture, and it's always better to see them up close and personal. Well, not necessarily up close and personal, but see them with your own eyes, isn't it?
So, it is, yeah. And no matter what, though, there'll always be something that's the exception to the rule with the paranormal, and the more you make it a rule, the more the exception occurs, just to prove you wrong, doesn't it? So
yeah. So where you started out, obviously you've got these experiences in childhood that's probably took you to where you are today, because I see you posting on social media platforms quite a bit, and you spend a lot of time in haunted locations, and and you can talk about a little bit of that if you want, whenever you want, and just say what you're about. Please do that. we've got an hour or two yet, so we're okay, aren't we? But what's the most scary thing that you've encountered on these vigils where you're doing a little bit of a night watch with by yourself or with a group of people?
So my scariest experience was from childhood, but that's different to the investigations. I suppose the biggest investigation I did that really got people's attention was I went to 30 East Drive, but on my own for charity. And I thought it was a really good analogy of it was to raise money for a domestic abuse charity. And I'm with this supposedly the most violent poltergeist in the world, locked in, unable to escape. And I thought it was quite a good analogy, really. So I went in there by myself, and as soon as I went in, my camera batteries just died, and it was 100%. I've had it, for a while. It's never drained before, and it just drained immediately. And while I've got it on the stand, I'm talking to people, I'm live streaming, and people donating, and it just started moving around. And I was like, "Look, my hands are here. This isn't me." And so that was a really interesting night and quite challenging. But the way that I deal,
just one sec, James. So you got your camera on a stand,
yeah,
and it's just moving like right to left, swaying.
Yeah, swaying around as if someone's holding it, okay. And I'm looking at it doing it, and there's no explanation for it. It's just on a stand. So yeah, and that I went in everyone obviously wanted me to go in the coal shed, which is where someone got strangled and beaten up by the poltergeist supposedly in there. And so I went in there, nothing really happened. Like there was a bang on the door when I was in there, and it opened slightly. And then I was upstairs doing some stuff, and there were some dolls up there, and the dolls supposedly are haunted as well that they've put in, and they like to play with coins. So I laid 3 coins down next to them, and I was trying to get them to do stuff, and nothing happened. And then I came downstairs, and there was one big, well, not big, it was smaller than mine, but probably about a size 9 footprint in the middle of the floor, completely different tread to mine, and in water, so it was just wet. Just appeared.
That's what I was going to say. How we got a footprint in floor at house, but it's wet. Yeah.
It's wet. It's like it's a water footprint, but there's none to it or from it. It's just one in the middle, and that's when and everyone in the chat for some reason was going, "Oh, you wait till 2 o'clock. You wait till 2 o'clock." So it got quite quiet after that, and then at 2 o'clock, I was in the front room and trying to make stuff happen, and nothing was. And then 2 o'clock came, and people were saying, "Move." The photos of the people who used to live in the house to where my equipment was. And then while I was moving stuff off the mantelpiece, I picked up this bell and it rang. And now I put it back down because I was just moving stuff. And then I heard like a coin being thrown against the glass door. Now it's a glass door from the lounge into the hallway. And I was looking, I was like, well, I can't find a coin, but everyone heard it. And then someone said, check the other side of the door. So I went and checked, and there was one of those 2 pences from upstairs down by the door that had been thrown. But the thing that blew my mind the most was when I was putting stuff back, I picked up the bell and it didn't ring. There was no dinger in it. So right. I have have less of an explanation for that.
That's fascinating, isn't it? And I take it, when you said you were locked in and this coin, there's nobody at the other side of the door. There's nobody. Nothing.
No, the house was empty. It was me on my own. We are going back with Ian and Jordan and Matt to film it this later on this year.
And full credit to people who've got that property. So, but all I'm doing is sat on fence here asking questions. Do you think there's any trickery or any setup involved to sort of lure people in and get them to think things are happening, or do you?
I think the guy that bought it doesn't. He bought it to premiere his film. He made a film about the family, and he's when he bought it, he was an absolute non-believer.
Right.
And he won't stay the night after buying it. He won't even go upstairs at night. So I don't think so. I mean, although I'm a believer and experienced probably more than a lot of people, I'm still very skeptical. And most of my paranormal investigations, I debunk things completely. So I would be I'd be really aware of anything like that. And people do go. And most of the time, nothing happens at all as well. So it's not uncommon for that to occur.
Do you know, you're spot on, and I'm glad you've said that, because, we spend time along cliff tops, eastern North Yorkshire, and a lot of the things that I talk about, or should I say we talk about, are what other people have sent in, or other people have come to us and seen and experienced. I think some people think as a collective, we're just up there throwing all these stories out, but the bulk of them are from other people, you know, which I think that tells you a lot. Just like you've been there, that 30 East Drive. I think there's a lot of witness accounts there to say something very, very strange is occurring. They're there, aren't they?
Yeah, and I think if we look at the Eastern philosophy of things as well, like if you go to a space and lots of people who have this belief system are consciously interacting, that's opening the door, even if nothing was there in the first place, to the possibility of paranormal occurrences. And I think that's why theatres are always haunted, because you're holding your belief into a different thing. You know it's not real, but your consciousness is perceiving it to be real. And I think that opens doorways to things to then come into, because
allow things to manifest. And as a collective, like you've just said, if you go in there as a group, providing you've not got somebody who's going in for wrong reasons and a little bit negative, and when you've got the right group of people, it seems to enhance the abilities of whatever it is that's wanting to get through from the other side of the firewall, I think, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely. And if you're believing in it, then you're more open to it. And I think that's what but my idea, I know we've spoken about this before, Paul, is my belief in this isn't always that it's dead people. And I think with the poltergeist especially, and we know, like, so quanta in itself is constantly in different forms until we consciously observe it, and that creates quantum collapse, and that becomes the reality that exists within our world. And that's how we navigate, because without it we'd go mad. So we need this kind of solidity of reality that we exist within. And I think everyone gets a certain amount of paranormal activity and they go, nah, that didn't happen, that's impossible. And they'll deny it, and they'll carry on with the reality that exists.
Accept it, and you become more open.
And you know, if we can accept that the reality is this, and that's what causes quantum collapse, then surely part of our acceptance that something else that breaks all the rules of our physics and reality, that acceptance consciously then interacts with other quanta and then opens that up for more things that are not real or not real in our reality exist. And I think it also then puts you on this different brain wave. And I think poltergeists are a separate consciousness that simply interacts with the solid world around us. And move things using the same energy that we move our body with, just by, from our consciousness, we think, let's do that, and we do it, don't we?
Yeah. I'd jump away, me personally, from belief. I don't believe, because when you've seen it and experienced it, we know, don't we? And and you're probably the same yourself, but you get a lot of people saying, do you believe in UFOs, or do you believe in ghosts? I find it a weird thing to say, because you don't have to believe in it. If you've seen it and experienced it, don't you? You kind of know. You might not know what it is and the mechanics involved that's brought it to your visual perception kind of thing, but you know it's there, don't you?
You don't need faith, because faith is like, I trust it exists, but I haven't experienced it.
Because there's loads of people out there that just dismiss what you're talking about and what I'm talking about. We know that. And I just let them crack on with it, because I can't change their minds, because their mind's made up and it's not going to change. Some of these people, I've done this one before, I've said it before, but I actually knew someone that had a up-close UFO sighting. But he said, but I don't believe in things like that. And he described what he'd seen. And I just thought, if this man weren't stupid, but what he's saying sounds stupid, I've seen it. I've given you this description. It had these windows in it. It were emitting some kind of humming sound, and it were close enough to see the windows. I don't believe in all like that. How nuts is that? That's crazy.
Yeah, it's a difficult one, isn't it? You have to accept that your version of reality doesn't exist, and that can be quite scary for some people. You're going out into a whole new world where everything you thought you knew isn't there.
It's frightening. Right, we'll have a look at this. Let's have a look. Question: have you heard of research by a man called Barry Colville, who showed the sound waves coming from knocks on items involved in poltergeist cases travelled from inside the object, not across it. I haven't, but James might have. Have you?
Yes, yeah. And the waves that it was making didn't come from like knocking anything in the house. So they measured it kind of knocking everything, and it was impossible to replicate the sound waves. We have had some amazing, there's one in Filey where we would knock on something and it would respond. We'd have like intelligent conversations, not once or not twice. So that was that was an interesting one.
It's fascinating, and you know, when I looked into a Hummingbee, and I'm still looking into it, I don't think I'll ever get to the bottom of it, but that started with poltergeist activity,
right?
Hummingbee started with, you know, they noticed things flying across the workshop when they were all together. So it weren't one of them doing some kind of prank, and coins began to drop out of the air. And all, I think you've heard me talking about it, so you know what the score is with Hummingbee. But do you with cases that you've looked into then involving poltergeist, do you detect, is it a trickster element? Is there any kind of sinisterness to it? Or do you get, because I said, I maybe should have rephrased my question earlier when I said, what scared you the most? Because we could also say, what have you found the most exciting and thrilling? It's not all bad. So let's just readdress that one. Have you had any good experiences that have left you feeling, wow?
Yeah, I mean, I love it. I get really excited. There is a video, I think it's gone now. It was online where we were out investigating, and then there's we hear that we're just away from anything, and we hear this woman suddenly start singing, and the entire group runs one way, and I run straight towards it. But yeah, I absolutely love it. But I first got into it because it was terrifying, and I grew up, when we first moved from down south up here to Brompton by Sordon, we lived in a house, and I called it the Demon House because it was everything. You know, if I wrote a book about that place, they could turn it into a horror film like that, because it was all the traits of this typical, you know, horrific house. It's everything from previous owners committing suicide, and then obviously I have that in my family as well when we lived there, and just things, you know, we turn around and there'd be something just floating in midair or shooting across the room. Apparitions, but not the same. People would see different things. Swarms of flies appearing, just, you know, constantly there, but no source of it. Puddles of water just suddenly appearing. We would hear, particularly if you're on your own to scare you, you would hear someone running across the ceiling, but purposely stamping their feet
across the floor upstairs.
Yeah. And but as if they're going through walls upstairs as well. Yeah. I'm not talking about little taps. I'm talking about as if I, as a big bloke, ran bang, bang, bang across the ceiling.
So what's that about then, James? Because we've got the physicality to it.
Yeah.
We've got. I can't connect the flies to a poltergeist. I struggle to do that. So we've got, and I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm not saying these things didn't happen, but did these swarms of flies just disappear, or were there actual flies?
There were actual flies. They'd die. You'd find them, and then they'd calm down, and then suddenly would start again.
You see, somebody might just turn around. The physical running across the floor upstairs and everything else. I could imagine if there's nobody in property and you're downstairs with your parents or your brothers or sisters, then that's really strange. But the flies, I could imagine somebody saying, well, maybe a bird's fell down chimney and that's what's caused the flies. And then it disappears, and then it happens again at some point during summer or whatever. I'm not saying that's the reason, but I can't connect. Me personally, I can't connect the flies to a poltergeist. But what do I know?
It is a common trait. We investigated a place in Filey that had dead flies in the loft in a circle that were just, you know. And I even said to them, "Have you been up there?" And they're like, "No, we haven't been up there for years." But they would seem pretty fresh. They weren't like down to their exoskeleton.
Yeah.
And we've had cases in America with them as well. So there were all these, and just bad luck. Like whoever lived there had horrific bad luck, like illnesses, and the thing is, all these things on their own you can probably explain. You know,
but as a collective,
it's And
just before, go on. Sorry, go on.
I was just going to say the pinnacle of it all, where I was like, because it was terrifying, and like I'd be a little kid, and I'd be asleep, and I had a cockatiel, and it would start hissing, and it didn't even hiss at the cats. It would start hissing and stuff would fly around, and it was terrifying. But the pinnacle, I was outside in my yard at night, and I heard something running towards me. And before I even turned round, and this is the only way to describe it, and people say, well, how do you know? And all I'm going to say is I knew. The feeling was it dripped with a hatred of humanity. And it was a black figure. And when I say a black figure, I am talking about, I can't even describe to you the black. You will have never seen it because it was blacker than any black you can imagine, as if all the light of the universe had been sucked out of it. And it wasn't tall. It was, quite a short little thing. And it ran past me, as close past me as you can without touching me. And then it ran round the corner, and I ran back in the house as quickly as I could.
The fear.
So, yeah, and then I was like, I had quite a dark childhood and a lot of trauma. And
what do you think its purpose was to create fear, instill fear in you then? Because there's nothing good come from it, will it?
Just hates humanity. I mean, this is why, like, if you're religious, I imagine you would call it a demon or something. And I beat my trauma, and I was like, right, I'm not letting this frighten me either. And that's why I got into it. But now, when I go into a house, and even I've been in a house, and the first thing they've told me it's a demon in the house, and they're so rare. And I went in, and it starts growling at me. And the first thing I do is I knock it off. Are you kidding? No, behave. And it will change how it then responds to you. So I kind of work with it very differently now.
So do you think these things feed off our fear then, basically, and evolve? And if they can sense the fear, then they're going to ramp it up and give you a little bit more of it.
Yeah, I think that thing definitely did. I don't know what that was, and I think that's very different to the other poltergeist activity. And whether it all is the same stuff or whether it all existed just in a concentrated area in there, I don't know. Whether one's connected to the other, but whatever that was dark.
We've got I've got another question here from Rick Allen. Let's have a look at this. Well, not another from Rick, but one from James. Have you seen poltergeist activity that interferes with electronics? If so, what do you believe is happening? And he appreciates your honesty.
Oh, thank you. Cheers. Yeah, I mean, we use quite a lot of electronics on investigations, and it does interfere with it. And we've had people who's had equipment that they can't even use in certain houses because their computer battery will keep blowing, all sorts of things. And you may have seen, I know Paul's going to come out with me, we've got a place in the woods that keeps buzzing out. There's nothing there, but it keeps pulsing out this electromagnetic frequencies. But by the same token, one of the first things I do when I go in the house is I look for loose wiring that could be the cause of stuff. Something's blasting out electromagnetic frequencies, then that can cause hallucinations and other things to occur. But yeah, I mean, electronics, and I know people as well, we call them sliders, don't we, who seem to affect electronic equipment and can't wear watches or anything else.
I'm just going to say some of them just can't wear watches or anything, can they? Yeah, and that spot, we'll not say, well, unless you want to, we'll not say where it is, but that's interesting because you got some recordings of those electronic pulses, didn't you?
Yes, yeah. It's I've
heard them, by the way. It was strange. But go on, James. Sorry.
There's just and it's also strange that during the day you'll get your reader out and it says 0, like there's nothing there, and then at night it just blasting it out at really high levels.
Yeah, I thought it was quite interesting that. Right, let's just just before we end on, well, not end the poltergeist, but you talked about the footprint in the liquid, or seeing the outline of a footprint in liquid. This house we're in now, and I'm sure I wrote about it in Night People. When we first got the property, elderly couple had lived in it just about all their life, so it needed totally updating. But they'd got a lot of what we'd call it cushion floor. It was lino. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
All of it landings, runners for carpets. So, and then you'd see lino, so 6 inch either side, because huge hallway. Took all the carpets up, but left that down. It were easy to sweep up while I were doing work on it. But often, there's no pipes above or anything, but often we'd come in and we'd find pools of liquid. And I didn't go up there with dog or anything. It weren't dog or dog's done at a wee or something, I don't know how Laura, probably too young to remember that, but Gemma might remember it. We'd find pools of liquid there. And weirdest experience one night, came out at bedroom, went to bathroom, I think all girls were at home. Looked down landing, which the really big landing, James. Well, you've been to property, but it's 3 flats, and into it. And I could see this, and I got Mary up to look at it as well. And there was what I can only describe as an almost translucent jelly that were bottom at landing, about, let's just say, as big as an house brick. And it were moving. And it made its way all the way up. And I'm stood looking at it in the darkness. We've got street light outside, so I could see this thing. It wasn't glowing, I could see it. It went into the other room, it went through the wall and then came back out. I got Mary up to look at it. We stood looking at this thing. No fear. It was weirdest thing. It almost amoeba-ish. It made no sense, really. And just a bit of weirdness. Thought I'd throw that in.
Ectoplasm or something.
God knows. Really, really strange. And it travelled all the way up, just sort of moving. And then, it went into the wall and came out at wall. And all sorts of things happened in that property, to be honest with you.
And it's funny, isn't it, Paul? Because it's as if these things are designed to make you look silly, because you saw it and you know it exists.
How daft does that sound?
Yeah. If you're going to make something up, you're not going to make up a little ball of jelly, are you? Because people think you're daft, but you saw it, so it's for you.
I definitely saw it, and before, years ago, you'd sort of question, shall I say this? Shall I talk about this? But you think to yourself, why lie to myself? I definitely saw it. There were one night, and people in chat might have heard me say this. You know your own property, so you just go upstairs. You don't even turn light off, do you? Light on. So I go upstairs in dark, and one of the girls came into all at bottom and flicked light on. Big winding staircase. And it were near to me, and it were almost like it went like iron filings. It were looked like a teddy bear. But I think that what distorted shape of it. It was so shocked, wherever it was, that it had been seen. It was really strange. And you realise you're opening yourself up for ridicule on a live stream, coming out with things like this. But I'm really not bothered, because what's the point in pretending that these things don't happen? And it might help other people. There might be somebody in chat, to be honest, James, who've had a similar experience and thought they might not want to talk about it, but they might think, bloody hell, I'm not on my own. Somebody else has had an experience like this. So
that validation, isn't it, can help.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's just throw this one out, James. Big Cat's mystery. Who does James think is better? Imaginary friend. Agio drop dead Fred. Okay. I should have read that.
We're in trouble a lot, didn't he, Paul? So
right. Let's just have a look. We may as well go through some of these questions. Well, I see Karen Behrman's in, Rhiannon, Lee's doing it, Rocket, Ben, Mag Sue. Let's have a look. We must have another question. Let's have a look here. I always remember when my young nephew, when he told me that he was moving home, he said, "Will the two eyes be moving too?" Wow. He insisted that there were two eyes in his old house that followed him. Good God, that sounds eerie. Just thinking about it, doesn't it? How old he was, fourth, but not that it matters. But I suppose it might be like part of wallpaper. If you might get used to it, providing you've not had a frightening experience with it.
Absolutely, and I think the best thing that we can do as parents is not say, well, didn't matter how many times my parents said, well, that doesn't exist and it's not happening, and they were experiencing it as well, but they tried to do that. Whereas with my kids, I was like, right, let's. We went to Boys and we got some glitter and magic wands, and we said, right, we're telling you to get out, and we performed a ritual, and that helped them feel more secure. So it's doing things like that help more. But
so they kind of turned it into something that was fun for you guys. Because, it could have, you get parents, I suppose, who could easily turn it into something frightening. When things were happening in here, we didn't turn it into anything, I'll be honest with you, but we didn't play it up. We didn't talk about it to them or say, you be careful, and do you want light on, and do you want this, do you want that? We just sort of, we just went along with things. The drops of light were the strangest. I don't know whether you've encountered them. And Laura's in now, and Gemma. And I think Gemma, I'm not sure if Gemma saw them. I think she will have done. But you'd walk in a room, and just as you open door, imagine a teaspoon-shaped bit of silver would just drop to the floor and disappear. Or
Oh,
we'd
wow.
all, as a family, and I don't know if Mary's listening, but there's two girls in here now, we'd be sat watching TV. Didn't have to be night. And we'd all just go, and you'd see one drop from ceiling and just drop and just disappear. And we used to call it just drops of light. Have you encountered anything like that?
I've not heard anything like that before. That's fascinating, though. I like that.
Yeah, Laura saw lots of them, but right, let's do it. Are we okay with these questions, James?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Hello, James. Question. Can I ask you what you think about the strange phenomena in woodlands up and down the country, cryptids, dogmen included? Andrew Wild. Thanks, Andrew.
Thanks, Andrew. Yeah, I think, if we look at Raincliff Woods, where Paul and I have been, these are places we're disattached from our ancestry and heritage and beliefs, really. And one of although like the internet and everything's amazing, we're kind of polluting some of our belief systems. And we used to, before Christian invaders came over here, we were obviously pagan and we were really attached to these things. So I don't think it's something that is new or anything. I think that it's actually we're reattaching to our ancient ancestral religion and belief systems. There's a guy who started writing for the Fortean Times, and I remember one of his stories. He was a journalist and a complete skeptic, and he's driving to a conference somewhere, and him and his wife just saw a little woodland man like walk across the road as if he's made of ivy and trees and walk,
Yeah.
and that's what brought him into this. These things definitely exist, and we call them the Fae or whatever else. We're boggarts and boggles in this part of the world, and I know people as well that have said who are again non-believers who have turned round and there's a boggle sat behind the sofa, and then they're like rubbing their eyes and look again and it's gone. These things do exist and always kind of have existed. And I mean, Paul knows obviously a lot more about the dogman and looked into that than me, but I made the mistake of taking it lightly, really, and thought I'd go up and meditate in Broxer Forest at night, and instantly regretted it because it was like gunshots, bang, 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 one after another, as if they're in a line very close, and it's pitch black. There's no one there. They'd have torches on. You wouldn't be firing guns, and you wouldn't have about 10 of you. And I felt, that was terrifying. So these places, I treat them with reverence. And sometimes I know I'm not meant to be there, and I just leave. And other times I feel quite welcome, and I talk to them and I say thank you for letting me be here.
Well, we'll stay with Raincliff Woods for a moment then, because we went in 2 months ago, perhaps. It was snowing, weren't it?
It was, yeah.
We'll talk about that car park before we finish this, and it was fun, that, weren't it? But I'd been in Raincliff Woods before. I'd been in quite a few times. I'd been in with Chris. I'd been in with eldest daughter Sarah. In fact, it was Sarah who told me about that sphere, that cloud that she'd passed through. But then by talking about that, it sort of sparked the conversation with you, and you'd experienced things in there and had reports from people. But since we've done that short film for the channel, there's been a few more reports of this figure on the road. So, I mean, I believe there's got to be something in it as a collective. These reports, I won't say there's loads of them coming in, but we're in an area. How many properties are close to this bit of road, James? What we got near to it?
Not much. There's a couple of farms, and that's about it. Either way, it's interesting piece of woodland because it's been a working forest for centuries, and there's burial mounds in there and everything. And I've had police, like they won't give their names, so I'm going to respect that. But I've had a police officer tell me that he's investigated at least 2 crashes there where someone's witnessed a black man, not a black man, a shadow person. Yeah,
the black figure, the outline, the silhouetted outline.
Yeah. Appear in the road, and actually, I followed one up and spoke to someone who'd written their car off because they'd swerved this figure and hit the tree. So these have been seen for a long time. I mean, it hasn't been a road for that long. It used to belong to the aristocracy, and it was their private road to ride through. So it's only been a road for about 100 years, but it's been a forest that people have worked and lived in for centuries. Yeah, and they would have been probably even very recently, the last 100 years, still would have probably interacted with what they would have called the Fae folk in there.
Yeah. Well, this is very close to where Ian, 1973, had that cryptid sighting. And I really hope that more people come forward and take a bit of strength from what Ian's been brave enough to talk about, because he's carried that a lot of years, hasn't he? 1973. And it's very close to the figure that appeared on the road that you told me about. And then as I walked round with Chris Wright, because me and Chris sort of wonder about these forests quite a bit, we're just talking, and he passed comment. He says, "Oh God," he said, "I saw that one that you did with James, and on about the figure on the road." And he said, "My brother-in-law saw a figure on that same stretch of road 15 years ago." Now, this isn't just thrown in. So he on the spot as we're walking around, he texted his brother-in-law, who he doesn't see often, but only lives in Scarborough. Got a big message back saying what he'd seen on the road. But where we'd kind of interpreted, I say we, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here, as it was some kind of sinister thing that we're trying to maybe create an accident. His brother-in-law's suggestion was better. It were a nicer outcome, because he's driving with his wife and child in the night. Suddenly, there's just a flash for a few seconds of a figure on the road. They can't see it from calves down. You can see the knees, just a black figure, the dark outline, silhouetted outline, and then it's gone. But he put the brakes on, and he's a good job he did, because apparently, this is the message that came through, seconds later, a car came flying around the corner on their side of the road, and he claims that it would have caused, that have been in a head-on crash. So, might be reading it all wrong here. Do you know what I mean?
I've really thought about that, and today, and what say that car that crashed into the tree, and he wrote his car off, but he was fine. We don't know if that figure hadn't interacted with that timeline, if that car hadn't then carried on and actually run someone over and killed him.
Yeah, go on, sorry.
So we're perceiving it as negative, and obviously that outcome of crashing his car is negative, but it could have been a lot worse.
Could have been done for good reasons, yeah. But it throws up loads and loads of questions, and not just Raincliff Woods people. Understand, I don't just mean Raincliff, but it throws up loads of questions in that if these people are telling truth, and we've no reason to believe that they're not, then the intelligence that is interacting with people on that road has somehow seen into the future, is somehow knows that there's something imminent going to happen, good or bad, and that's a bigger question than actually seeing it, I think.
It is, isn't it? And I mean, again, looking at quantum reality, time doesn't exist on the plane we know, so maybe they just have this information that exists on this timeline and can access it. Who knows? And I've seen lights in there as well, Paul, haven't I? Those weird just pillars of light that are slightly at a diagonal, but there's like a cut-off point. But obviously there's no lights around, and they're just there in the road. Not just me seeing them, lots.
Yeah, no, it's fascinating. I enjoyed that wander around with you, and it would have been dead easy for Paul to cheat and put a little bell sound in the film, and nobody would have ever known, but the audio didn't pick it up, so we didn't put it in. But we heard a bell several times in there when we were in the silence, didn't we?
Yeah, and we heard different things between us as well, didn't we?
Yeah,
things you heard that I didn't, and things I heard that you didn't. And and we both, as I said, despite believing all this stuff, we're both quite rational people.
Try to be. But I don't know. Interesting place, and one that I'm sure we'll revisit. I've got a question here from Ian. You met Ian at Scarborough. James, what's the best tools you use to catch these things? Personally, mine are my eyes. Look at them blue eyes on his thumbnail as well. Lovely blue eyes, Ian, auntie.
Hi, Ian. Yeah, it was lovely to meet you. I agree. I always say it's the best tool, and the best investigations are you. And it's interesting because we've been on investigations as well where we've had different cameras around, and we did one which we can't go into because it was a private place, but it was in Whitby, and we went in, and there was three of us. There was the person who works there, and there was myself and Matt, and we had cameras at each part of the room, and we heard a woman's voice very clearly. Now, what's interesting is all the cameras didn't pick it up, apart from one. Even the camera there was a camera right by where we heard the voice. and the microphone didn't pick it up. The only one that did was the one that Matt was holding, because he is the conduit, let's say, for that. So, and I keep going into the word consciousness, because I truly believe the poltergeist stuff in particular is interacting with our consciousness and manipulates us, and we manipulate it in return. And I think, you can have all the equipment in the world, and if you're closed or something, then it isn't going to pick it up. And like I said, most of the time it's when you've finished that it will do it. But for me, the equipment is just a nice tool but it is about you, and you're using that tool. And if you just left that stuff in the room on its own without you interacting with it, I doubt you'd get any response.
Do you know, you're spot on. The unexplained actually needs us. We're the ingredients. We're part of the mix, aren't we? That activates and stirs it up, should we say? We've got another question here, James. Let's have a look. If the Doddleston messages are real, then maybe poltergeist activity are sent from the future. It's kind of what we've just talked about, this foresight, if that's what's happening on that road, isn't it?
Yeah, I think if Eric's right, is he talking about the computer where something was sending messages from the future?
I really don't know. So Eric, you obviously know a lot more about this than I do. So
I'm remembering names. I remember what happens in cases, but not the names of them. But I think that's what he's talking about. I think the thing is as well with the poltergeist stuff, whatever we think of it, it's all different things. So some of it will be demonic, and some of it will be potentially when someone recently's died, it will be them. And then this other stuff, the majority of it, I think, is consciousness. And to be honest, I think it takes the piss. That's what it's there to do. It believes it's superior to us, although it needs, for some reason, our consent, the same as vampires. And when someone rings me up and they've got activity, the first thing I say is, tell it to stop. Like, you might not need me to come round, tell it to stop. And often that resolves it, because you're removing that conscious consent. And even when we're using people use the sage and that, I don't think the sage does anything, but I think your belief the sage does something makes it happen.
On the same page. We absolutely agree with that. And by using that, we think that's working, but our intent is put out there that this is going to cure you. And it's the same. And we don't use the Ouija board, but it's the same with the people who use them. And I say, people must get sick of me on about it, but it's not magic. The board is not magic. It's the actual energy and input, in my opinion, of the people investing time in it that create or pull through something from other side of that firewall. What are your views?
Yeah, I completely agree. And using the Ouija board, you're giving your consent, and that's why you get the interaction. But I think we have to be really careful, because they do take the piss, and the more you think you're special, they'll take the mick even more. And there's is it Hungry Ghosts, a book, and they followed the messages that the poltergeists were giving them, and pretty much everyone that was involved in that ended up very ill, or even worse, dead from these messages, and their mental health was affected. So if someone gives me a message and it's like I'm at someone's house and it's their grandma, and they're giving messages saying I am their grandma, and giving information that only their grandma could know, all I say is it's giving information that it is your grandma. I never say it is your grandma. So it's
probably being tricked.
Yes, and look at the Battersea poltergeist is a perfect case, and they said this celebrity is going to get injured, and he got injured, and then the next week it said, and this person's now going to have a car crash, and the family are desperately trying to get in touch with this other celebrity. So you're going to have a car crash, you need to be careful, and nothing happened. It was taking the mick, and it would give information about this prince, and 9 things were right, but something else is absolutely ridiculous enough, and they're just interacting and taking the mick out of us.
Jumping back to Hummonby, and I said that it started with poltergeist activity, or seemingly poltergeist activity. Do you find then, when you're looking into these cases, and I stay with Hummonby, that it seems to, as your awareness of something happening increases, the poltergeist activity or the strange activity ramps up as well? The more you invest your energy and time into it, the more bold it becomes. So it starts almost amoeba-ish. Did I just see something move then? Was there just a little bit of flick or something, or a little crack of something hitting the floor, and then it grows and grows as your energy and input into it sort of builds. Do you find that a lot?
Definitely. It normally starts off with knocks and raps. So those type of things. And again, most people would just go, oh, it's pipes or something. But if you give it that attention and again that conscious acceptance, then you do get more, and it grows and interacts with you. And I believe as well, if you could convince someone that it was the ghost of a badger, they will start seeing eventually the ghost of a badger. And so it interacts with your belief system in return as well. So if you think it's your gran, you'll start getting messages that it's your gran.
And that must be your internet froze, or maybe mine's freezing at my end. I don't know what were happening there, but have you noticed anything there, James?
Yeah, you've frozen a couple of times, and then
right, it could be me. I don't know then. So apologies if that's what's happening, people. It's out of my control. But that must be not frightening, but disappointing. Then, let's assume you believe in the afterlife, and I'm repeating some things that I've talked about quite a lot recently. Whereas when we invest thought after a bereavement, I won't say all the time, but quite often people will see their deceased loved one. We'll word it nicely. We're not going to say graphic here, are we? And what if it isn't? What if it's something else that's just like you've just said? If you said there's the ghost of a badger, if you believe it enough, you'll see it. What if it's something else producing those images or those visuals, like almost holographic and just wanting to gauge our emotion or draw something from us? And that's a somber thought or a frightening thought for anybody who's thought they've seen. Oh, what if it's something else that's doing it just to give us comfort? I don't know.
It's a difficult one, isn't it? And I always feel quite bad as well when someone believes that their gran or their mum or a dad or a lost, really loved lost one is with them, and then I say, well, we can't say for certain it is, and I feel bad about that. I'm a lot older than I look, and from my years and years of research, there seems to be. I believe anyway, and everything I say, by the way, is my belief. So everyone's entitled to disagree with me whatsoever. I believe that there is evidence that the human spirit, let's call it, for want of a better word, kind of exists for 5 days after they've died. There seems to be some evidence that, and then it just stops. And then, potentially sometimes people call on them and they do come back. But potentially it's something else, and that's the way to get your attention. If you're yearning for your, lost sister or even lost dog, and something potentially nefarious could go, I've got a way in here to get some attention. Yeah. There's a brilliant book called The Art of Dying that two psychologists did, and that goes into all of these cases of actual evidence of kind of people living on. But I think the 5 days, and they seem to go. And my brother, for example, when he passed away, on the 5th day, I saw him. And when I say I saw him, I mean it was scary. If I saw him as a soft outline or translucent, I would have been comforted. But he was solid. He was there, and I was like, I went, oh my, and then he was gone, and then I plucked up the courage to ring my granddad that afternoon, and he said, oh, I'm glad you said that. He said, I was asleep and I felt someone pulling my glasses off, and he said, and I looked up and he was stood there laughing because he pulled my glasses off. And then I spoke to my mum, and my mum had said, oh, I'm glad you've rang. I thought I was going mad. I was in the kitchen and turned around and he was stood there, and then he disappeared. So
that's fascinating.
That was all one day, and I think that was him going.
Yeah, absolutely. Just before we go on, I just want to see Blue Shifts in, Ben, Margaret Webster. Let's have a look on Alucci. I just wish I could say everybody's name, but I can't. And we're going to say something else then, and that's left my mind. Oh yeah, I'm a lot younger than I look. What did you say? You're a lot older than you look. But, no, let's have a go. Let's see this. Are we figments of our own imaginations? I don't know. I don't think we're here. We're definitely here. We're in the here and now, whatever that here and now is. What do you think to that question?
Yeah, I know what they're getting at. I mean, when we look at the sense of self, I mean, we can go really philosophical, can't we? It doesn't exist because it changes within every second, and You know, one philosopher, a Greek philosopher, says if you go stand in a river, then both you and the river is different to the next time you stand in the river. And our sense of self changes with who we're talking to and everything. So in that sense, it doesn't really exist. But it's a difficult one to know, is it? And I think if you lose that, if you get too invested in it, you probably go a bit mad.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've got a question from moderator Lee. Did you see or feel Fred at 30 East Drive, James? Thank you.
I didn't see or feel Fred. Like, I suppose when I was in the shed and something banged on the door and it opened a bit, that was quite aggressive. But on the whole, as I said, I get this. Some people call me the paranormal social worker because I do go in and go, come on, what you're playing at, calm down, let's have a chat and deal with it like that. And I normally find it's quite positive in response, even if it is something negative in how it perceives it's to other people. So it was quite playful when I was there, to be honest.
Okay, let's have a look. Janice asks, have you looked into the Enfield Haunting? Being a Londoner and growing up in the 70s, it's always interested me.
Yeah, I'm a fellow Londoner, although I don't sound like it. I've got my Chelsea shirt on now, so I'm from West London originally. Apologies. I think is it Tottenham in Enfield, so we're sworn enemies. But yeah, it's a really fascinating case, isn't it? And I think a lot of debunkers go, well, she admitted that she was making certain bits up, but the girls, if you've got to listen to all the interviews where they say we did make some up because we felt like we were trick ponies, and we had to do it because the media was there all the time, and we felt you know what kids are like. They
needed to produce something for camera or something. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, but there was so much that was absolutely unexplained. The police went round, for example, because Mum called the police because she didn't know who to talk to, and the chairs were being pulled away and shot across the room. Now they're police. They went, and they're not easily fooled, and they went and looked, and there was no strings on these chairs, and there was nothing to explain how that happened. There were journalists who went there like quite begrudgingly actually, and had stuff thrown at them to the point it drew blood, and they said that the kids didn't move their hands or it came from a different direction. So it's really hard to tell, but there's a perfect example of what I was saying before. There was said that these girls were being flung in the air, and we've got photos, but all the photos look, to anyone else, unless you were there, they look like someone jumping in the air and just capturing that picture midway through. And we even know the investigator actually started faking stuff as well. So, and again, he was so desperate to prove all the things that he'd seen was real that he started carrying stones in his pocket. Morris, is it Morris? Can't remember.
I can't remember his surname, but it was Morris, weren't it?
Yeah. And he started flicking stones because, again, it was like, I imagine he faced a lot of ridicule for this stuff and believing in it and investing so much time and energy that he started faking it. So those that are skeptical will say, well, if they faked that, then
it's all fake.
It's all fake. But actually, only one thing needs to be true for them to have.
That's true, but unfortunately, all you're remembered for is that one fake, aren't you?
Yes.
That's all it takes. Jump into where we spend a lot of time up and around them cliff tops of East and North Yorkshire. The bulk of the time, James, nothing happens. Nothing happens, and we rely on other people sharing their experiences as well. And you get a lot of negative from certain elements. I won't even give them airspace as regards say where from. That none of this is real, and it's all coming. We can't somehow making it up. Well, you can't make these bits of footage up that we're filming. Obviously, we could place the voices that we've managed to capture that haven't been our own on the film, but we haven't. But if we wanted to fake something, it'd be a lot easier than the weak attempts or the weak offerings that we've managed to capture via audio. We did one in snow, me and Linny, which you've probably seen, and jokingly, nobody said it was fake because I thought most people would know it was joking. I walked backwards in snow. And then I talk and I go, it looks like somebody's been dropped from air in size 10 wellies, Hunter wellies. Well, obviously, it was me, weren't it? Walk backwards. But some people thought it were real. How could it be? But no, I don't think you've ought to gain that, like you're just talking about the Enfield Poltergeist, and that just once being caught out sours it for everything, doesn't it? It absolutely does.
Yeah, and I mean, I am really strict and probably annoy people I go with a lot, because I am really quick to rule out everything, or I'll even say, do you know what, we can't say that isn't that, so we're gonna have to say that isn't paranormal activity, but then that leaves what we have left as like the absolute, like anyone could test our methods and know that is unexplained, and then you know you provided something real then.
Question here, James. Let's have a look. Dave Marshall. Hi, David. Have you seen anything else in Raincliff Woods? I think we probably covered it, but he might have something else to add.
I'll tell you what I have seen, David. Thank you for your question. Is a bobcat one night, and I know that's not paranormal, but it's definitely interesting. I've kind of gone into most of the stuff I've seen in Raincliff Woods, but I've had other experiences of things. So I've had stuff thrown. I suppose here's a good one. I got called by this couple who were walking in daylight, and I told this one on the video with Paul, and they said this again. It's this black figure, this kind of shadow person, kind of got up like that and then ran at them on the boards, and then vanished just as it was about to hit him, and they kind of went like that, and it vanished. And they gave me the 3 words of the exact spot, and I went out there. And I was there for an hour, and pretty quickly my battery drained on my torch, and it was a new torch and everything on my phone. And so I stood in darkness, and if you've been in darkness, your eyes adjust, and there was no one around, and these rocks started being thrown at me, but not hitting me, purposely not hitting me. And then they were warm to the touch when I picked them up. And I went with Ian from Two Guys What's Up. I took him out, and he got stuff thrown at him. And coming that way on, it's like so not from the sky, not from the trees, like horizontally with purpose. They did hit him, so they obviously didn't like him as much as they like me.
And were it in the same place where we were, paralleling Darwin?
Yeah, just there. And I've taken other people up, and there's tree knocks as well. So these rhythmical tree knocks that are purposeful and sometimes respond. Very rarely respond to it, but sometimes you get them.
It's interesting, isn't it? Somebody sent me quite a few emails, and he sent me one. And first time I'd spoke about it other day, but I thought fascinating. I wonder how many people have tried it. I mean, tree knocks are not something I've ever done. I know that you've experimented with that. I'm not saying nobody should have that, but I've never done it. But this man said that when he was in the woodland with his sister, as was a teenagers, and it's a particular part of woodland where even in daylight it looked very, very dark. So when it comes to dusk, it is dark in there. He said, for some reason, he didn't know why he'd started doing it. He'd throw a stick in, just throw it into the darkness. He said, and if you waited, the stick would come back out.
Amazing.
Yeah, and I thought, wow, I've never heard that before. So it's probably, and I don't know if this man's shared his accounts with many people. So we'll see whether this sort of permeates and other people start doing it, because it's interesting, isn't it? You know, I did find that fascinating.
That's a fantastic story. And yeah, if anyone does have any stories about Raincliff, if you get in touch with me, because I wanted to write an article actually for Fortean Times about it, because it's such an interesting place. So I'd love
Absolutely.
to hear experiences.
Yeah, well, you know, they will do. I put some links in to contact you, James. Well, that's a good point. That just while we're at this stage now, where can people contact you?
So I do Fortean News Podcast, and so Fortean News Podcast at gmail.com, and that comes out regularly. I do interviews, but I also just tell anything that's in the news that's high strangeness, paranormal, every single week, and kind of discuss it. And then we've got the Confessions of a Ghost Boy channel on YouTube and TikTok, and I tell lots of ghost stories. Wherever I go, I try and find not just ghost stories, anything, again, Fortean high strangeness, and tell those stories on there and try and make them a bit fun. So
you're going to struggle with that name when you get to my age, aren't you? Confessions of a Ghost Boy.
I'm already getting there.
Is it? But,
I'm already getting the praise.
Now I'm going to put this question up, but we're not there to slander anybody. But just for balance, I'm going to put this question up, and so Simon says the woman who owns East Drive has been caught throwing coins about. He's filmed himself doing it. she's. I see. There's no capital S. I don't know anything about that, Simon. But I'm not saying you're wrong. But I just thought I'd put it up for balance.
I mean, I've not heard of that, and I don't know how they get in. That's interesting. It doesn't explain the bell though, or some of the other bits, like the door being kicked, because I was right behind it and opened it and no one was there. But they, potentially they could have unlocked the door, come in, locked it again, and thrown the coin and then run out before I had a chance to catch them. But they'd have to do it really quietly. I'm in a house in pitch black on my own.
In defence of it, we've just been talking about Enfield. Let's assume it happened once. It kind of sours it for all of it, doesn't it? But in defence of it, if you've got many groups of paranormal investigators, you've got many individuals or couples who are interested in unexplained visiting that property. I don't know how often they visit. Is it every week? I don't know.
Every night, I'd say.
Every night. I think there'd have been more of that exposed. Yeah. I'm not saying you're wrong either, Simon. I'm not saying that what you've said is not true, but I mean, I don't know.
There's a possibility, a chance in there. But I'll tell you something else. When I got back to my car, and this one will blow your mind as well. When I got back to the car, one of those 2 pences, because I bought these free 2 pences, one of them was lying on my car seat in my locked car.
Really?
Well.
Yeah. It's funny. I looked over there then because I don't know what I've done with it. But I found it other day again, just while I've been rooting around. There's no poltergeist here. It's me putting stuff down and can't find where I've put it, if I'm being truthful. But when I, years and years ago, writing first book, I visited RAF Bempton with permission from landowner to take some photographs. Very kind of him. And just went into one at buildings, and in the doorway, I mean, somebody could have just placed it there. But I just found it unusual. There's an old penny, which I picked up and I looked at it. I can't remember the year on it. I was looking for it then. But it's strange how you see these things, isn't it? And it went. I put it in. I put it in my pocket and kept it. But then I sort of lost touch with it. But I found it again the other day, and I'd looked all over for that old penny. Do you know what I mean? Because it must be. Well, when I wrote this book, so we're going back quite a few years. So yeah, that were interesting. Oh, incidentally, I'll do it while I've just mentioned the books. If anybody's interested in the Truth Proof books, visit the website truthproof.uk, which Don Lodge puts all reports on. So if you've got any unusual reports you want to submit, you want your names omitting, just tell us, or anything that might connect you to the location. If you don't want that putting out, any personal details, just tell Don or myself. But truthproof.uk for the paperback books, or Amazon. The Kindle versions are there, obviously, on Amazon, and you can also get the hard copies of the Truth Proof DVD on truthproof.uk or eBay. And I always say it, but if anybody orders anything tonight, it'll be in the post in the morning. I've got a fairly good reputation for posting them. I'm a bit, if somebody says to me, I'll see you at 6, I'm usually there at 6. Do you know what I mean? You know what I mean, don't you? I like to do things on time. There's no waiting about for days. If somebody orders something, it's gone. So that's just my little bit done. Let's see. Shall we just... I think we've not looked at this one. James, has James read many paranormal books? If so, which one has stuck with him the most?
Yeah, I'm always reading lots of books. You can probably tell. The one I love actually is I'm going to forget his name, aren't I? It'll come to me. It's one on he researched all the poltergeist cases and put them all together in one book. I've got it over there actually. Blythe Spirits, that's it. Blythe Spirits with an S. There's obviously a novel with Blythe Spirits, and he's one of the guys actually that writes with Fortean Times, and he looked all over the world at these cases and the trickster, and he links it to other cultures. So the Native Americans have exactly the same activity, and they just blame it on the coyote trick, and he's a trickster, the coyote god. So in that kind of folklore, it's the coyote spirit, but it's exactly the same Mickey taking poltergeist activity.
So we're all on the same page, really. No matter, even if we're spanning thousands of miles across the ocean, we're all on the same page. And it arcs back to what you said earlier. Maybe the shape of what we're seeing is based on what we believe in, but it's the same entity, it's the same intelligences that are coming forward. If intelligences are the words for it,
Yeah, it seems to be plasticine that is shaped by our belief system, and obviously, only in this area on the moors and everything. Probably still some people still believe in the house boggarts, and they exactly the same. They carry out poltergeist activity and take the mick and pan, and Loki as well from the Norse ideas. They all have exactly the same traits. It doesn't matter where you are in the world, Japan, Asia, anywhere, Africa. They've all got these kind of trickster spirits.
And there's a lot of Norse influence in North Yorkshire, isn't there?
Yes, definitely.
I spoke to somebody today. Well, exchanged messages. I've spoke to him in the past over the last, 4 or 5 years. And I'm hoping to speak to him tomorrow or early in week. And this is North Yorkshire. And this guy's got a lot of really, really interesting information to share about the woodlands and forests around North Yorkshire, having been brought up there and still lives. I'm not sure where he lives, but he still lives very close to the forests, but now along the coast. So I'm looking forward to getting this information. I know it sounds a bit vague, guys. I know everybody's thinking, why don't you tell us? Well, you know me, if you've listened to me, I like a little bit more meat on the bone. I can tell you some of the things about local people that know all about the things that people think we're talking rubbish when we made the film Wolflands, that these things are in these forests. Well, there's local people out there that have lived there all their life that will tell you different. And this guy's one of them. So we're going to get some of that information in week, I hope.
Fantastic.
So we seem to be dwelling on East Drive, and we won't. I want to just talk about your UFO sightings. So we'll briefly do this next question. 30 East Drive, how long? And this is Ian. This is interesting. That's why I put it up, because everybody looks different to the pictures. This guy doesn't look like that in picture. This is the guy from Raincliff Woods, I believe. How long since the last residents of East Drive lived there, and is the furniture left from the last residents?
So I think so. I'm going from memory here. I don't know how long people haven't lived there. It's quite a while, and I think they've got furniture similar to their furniture that was there, but it isn't the actual furniture. Now, I could completely be wrong there, but that's my impression from what I know. And they have brought in other haunted objects, and there are some family pictures of stuff there. But yeah, this was a case where like the eggs were operating in midair and being cracked, and then the owner of the house put them in a box and sat on it, and yet they still came out and operated and cracked, and the neighbours were having activity as well. So it's a fascinating case.
It bleeds through, doesn't it? It does bleed through. I wondered though, James, if the neighbours had activity because they'd heard about what was happening, and suddenly that's on their minds.
Potentially, yeah. That's a really interesting point. Never thought of it like that. They then open their consciousness up to it as well. Yeah. And that's another good book. Sorry, Paul. Jot, Jott, and that's about things that disappear and reappear, like Paul's coin. That's a great book, and that is just about, you can have a coin and it'll disappear and then reappear and it'll have a different date on it, although it's exactly the same place that it appears in. Sorry, Paul.
No, don't be sorry. It's about you tonight. Even though people will be saying, why don't Paul just shut up and let him talk? But just have a look. Zen, thanks for support. Nige, Chef Lad, Shadow 33. We've got Ben, Lee Roscoe, Alison, Gemma doing moderating. Thanks a lot. Moondog, Mel Suter. Good to see you, Mel. Hope to see you on Cliff soon. I hope you're feeling a lot better as well. And let's jump. And if I don't get to your questions, people, because I'm conscious at time, apologies, because I know if I scroll down, I'll forget where I am with questions. So that's where I'm at the moment. And we might get to a few more, but I want to jump to the UFOs now then, if that's okay. So take us back to 1984 then, please, James.
No, that's showing how old I am, isn't it? So, yeah.
Well, when you were 2, and then I'm joking. Go on.
I was, we were at school, and this was in Coventry. So I moved from London to Coventry and then up north. And our teacher, we were doing our 5 senses. So, what can you see? What can you feel? We're learning about that. And we went outside the playground and we did a little exercise and going, right, what can you see? And I said, what can you see? And I said, a UFO, miss. And everyone giggled and looked up. and there was this silver object, like a cigar shape, but with no, it was just like a plane, but with no windows, no wings, no tail, no markings, and it was just there in the air. And I really remember it because we ended up going back in and drawing what we saw. And I remember drawing this UFO, and the teacher was just like, "Oh yeah, I can't explain that." So that was the first one I saw, and then I remember doing a drawing competition and winning book tokens, and I bought this Usborne book of UFOs, and that was my first book into all this stuff. Remember reading those cases and finding it fascinating.
So the UFO, how many other people saw it then, James?
Everyone in that class. So it's a class of 30. The teacher as well. We all saw it, and quite a few of us drew that day as well. Didn't make the press because I told this story before, and someone thought it was the case in Wales where loads of kids. But no, this was in Coventry, and I don't think the school told the press.
Well, just as a side note, I spoke to John Hanson today. I don't know if you know John, but he's probably got biggest archive of UFO related material, definitely in UK.
Right.
And what a great guy. If you're listening, John, but I'll get John on it next week or two. He's been on before. He writes the Haunted Skies books, which are big volumes, big thick books that are just full of UFO reports. He'll do a full year, 1998. And he sent me the 1970s because somebody's wrote to me, sent me some emails regarding a UFO that they saw. And it interested me because it was close to where I used to live in the Dearne Valley. And this UFO that this young boy saw close up, saw the windows and everything in this thing, and apparently it was in the local paper, the Star. So he sent me all these reports, like literally hundreds of reports from the 70s. So I'm going to go through them and see whether we can find it. He's not supposed to have got it. You know what I mean? He don't have every news report, but he sent me loads and loads. But that's kind of not shaped a person's life, but once again, we stop believing when we've actually seen it, don't we? It doesn't have to believe anymore. So that was a good one. So yeah, John Hanson, a big shout for John, because not just because he sent me these volumes of information, but what a great guy, and the information he's got. And he's so underrated, is John Hanson, when it comes to sort of sharing information. He's very kind and generous with his time. So thank you, John. There's a question for everybody. Anybody who wants any UFO-related information, I mean, he might charge you a small fee, perhaps, if he finds the information out for you, but he's got this great big library of information, and he's had to invest time and effort putting it all together. So why shouldn't he have a few pounds for his effort? And for the most part, John don't make a bean, to be honest. So anyway, my rant over. So let's have a look. We've done the 1984 school UFO. And I think there's another one. And if I just said you were delivering books, would that make any sense? To sound like a medium, don't I?
Yeah. So I was out on the Wold Newton Triangle, which many people around there will know about. That's full of this high strangeness, and it was during lockdown, and I was delivering books to children that are in care, so they had something to do. It was part of World Book Night because people couldn't get out, and give them something to read. And I was joking, saying, "Oh, I wonder if I'll see a UFO." And then I was listening to a podcast, and they were talking about UFOs, and I was even giggling to myself. I said, "I'm definitely going to see a UFO in a minute," and I did. And the way it was big, so it was as big as those military helicopters with two propellers. And if I got someone to draw a bell using a ruler, so it was like that, diagonal down, and like that,
straight lines.
Straight lines, yeah, but three, obviously dimensional, and it was like a matte black color, and it was just hovering, and then it went down, and then back up, down, and then it shot off, just out, wherever, out of sight at incredible speed. But the way that it went down and stopped and back up, like I can't think anything biological is in there, otherwise it'll just be mush.
So whereabouts roughly were you when you saw that then, James?
That was near the crematorium near Driffield, near that roundabout there. Yeah, and there's an airfield there as well, but it was nothing. I did report it to MUFON, and they rang me, but I never got a chance to speak to them because they always rang when I was doing something. But
well, what's fascinating there, because it is near Drift, I suppose, but you've got Langtoft before Drift and other places. I know just where you mean. When people in chat will have heard me say, for years and years, I spent a lot of time on the Wolds at Octon. That's where the crematorium is. The crem's at Octon. So it's near Drift. So I could imagine, you're connecting it with Drift. So that's fascinating in itself, James, that you saw something where myself and Steve literally spent years in these areas. Because when you come to Roundabout, you can go straight on and towards Langtoft and then to Drift, or you can go down towards Sledmere, or you can take a left and go to Bridlington, So, but as you know, you'd have come Staxton way, I take it, doing that, would you?
Yeah.
So you were in the vein of strangeness, because it's funny you should say it, because myself and Ian and rest of us have been thinking of actually revisiting those areas, because it's been a bit flat where we've been. You know what I mean, don't you? Not as in flat, as in there's just not been that energy there. But I've had a few reports from up on Wolds in that area around Octon and to Fridaythorpe. So, it might be worth spending a bit of time up there, I think, just in case it starts kicking in again.
There's a lot of strange atmospheres up there, and Viking. Have you ever heard of the story there, Paul? I've been meaning to ask you this for ages. And in the 80s, the national press reported a truck driver driving on that road from that roundabout to Staxton, and a Wolfman jumping on his bonnet.
I thought, now I could be wrong here, it were written in a book called The Ghost Hunter's Handbook, and I thought it was on the A1039 road, but I could be wrong, which is the road that runs through Flixton.
Right.
But even so, we're not far away. You know what I mean? You're not far away from that. So that's interesting in itself. And, even closer to where you are is Foxholes.
Yes.
And I'd have to speak to Alistair, a friend of mine who lives in Scarborough, to see whether we could reveal name, although revealing name doesn't alter the story. But I spoke to this guy firsthand, but he's passed away now. So it's first-hand account that Alistair put me onto this man. Quite an influential job, quite an high-profile job. And he was travelling home to Hull from his parents in Scarborough, travelling down the road. You've been to Foxholes when speed limit flashes up, haven't you?
Yes, yeah.
So before he gets to that, it's a wet, moonlit night. It's a bit of cloud. And as he's driving, he's in a Jaguar car, just looks to his right, and in his window is a huge wolf. Now, there'll be people listening to this who are listening for giggle factor, maybe. Well, give your heads a shake. I'm repeating what I've been told, and I get lots of stories like this. And if you don't believe it, switch off and go somewhere else, because I believe this guy were on the level, and his persona and his mood, as he were telling me. These weren't emails. He was speaking, and he says, but what I couldn't get my head around, he's doing 45 miles an hour ish. This thing's pacing him, but looking at him. It's looking in. And he said it had got fangs hung down as big as his thumbs. And you could hear the sort of anxiety in his voice. And he said he speeded up at 55, 60 mile an hour and left it. And it was stood in road, not on 2 feet. It was stood in road. He could see it on the glistening in his mirror. That frightened him to death. So that's not far from where you've just talked about. Now, under different circumstances or a different personality, somebody very, very nervous, should we say, or not, we don't know how we'd react. You turn and see that, you could be straight off road, couldn't you? And there's not forced to be anything to do with what he's seen that's going to interfere with you afterwards. You've just a nasty accident that could in fact be tragic. It's a strange one. That's on the Foxholes Road, 2 miles away.
Yeah, and these people they've got nothing to gain by telling. They're roping themselves up to ridicule. There's no financial, I've been doing my podcast for years and I've made a massive loss. It's not a financial gain doing this stuff. And particularly if you're just telling your story, it's they've got no reason to do it, and other just getting it out there and someone believing them quite often when they come and talk to me. And I'm normally a pretty good judge of character and pretty good at knowing when people are telling the truth or not. And some of these people are just desperate to be believed. Well, I've also seen a green light up there, talking of UFOs, right above, and it could be military, above Staxton Hill. And it was when the Blair Witch Project came out, because I remember we'd been to see it at the cinema, 5 of us in the car coming back from York, and we look up and there's this giant green phosphorus ball It was huge, just hovering above Staxton Hill, and then just shot straight up in the air. And Ian actually seen Ian from Two Guys What's Up was out doing his deliveries, and he saw exactly the same thing, maybe in Flixton. So, you
were seeing numerous spheres of light, and there was the farmer up at Staxton who me and Steve used to speak to regularly on the phone while we were on the Wolds. He'd got the cameras on the cams overlooking the area. And it was quite amusing because he'd be telling us, he said, there's one of those spheres of light, and say, yeah, we can see it. And at distance, I think we're probably looking about 5 or 6 miles away as the crow flies. And I'd say, Steve's on roof, on car roof, and he'd be shouting to his wife, he's on the roof, you know, to get a better vantage point. It were odd really, because I wanted to film them. I wanted to try and capture some evidence of what we're talking about. Yeah. Basically to show people, but as you pointed out earlier, James, no matter what you show people, there's always going to be people saying it's fake, or you know that this has been made up. Even if you showed it filmed on an old camera that said that it was fake because somehow we've got some kind of, I don't know, something that can make it look old.
Yeah. I put one up recently of a video, and I can verify it's 100% true. This candle's moving across the table by itself, and I spoke to the witnesses. And the lady that filmed it's passed away, and they were saying she would not fake this. And we came in the room afterwards, and it was on the floor, and she came running in our room. And but as soon as someone even took it down off one of their groups because they said debunked, it's fake. You can see the strings. There was no strings. That you can even see on the TV reflection. There's one person in the room. Because I even analysed it, even though I completely believe the people. And it's so they're never going to believe it. But then I always say that's part of it. You can. It's for the person there experiencing it.
Well, this is interesting. We'll throw this question. Well, it's not a question. It's an observation. Because before we came on tonight, James come on about 5-10 minutes before, and I told him that on occasion, and I very, very rarely, but I remember doing a live stream and seeing a light pass by. And I looked on the stream afterwards. I think it was one we were doing with Chris Turner. And we looked, and sure enough, there was some light. I don't know. It could have been a fly that was just caught in reflection of this light. I don't know. But somebody's just put this up. Let's have a look. And Selma says, who was the woman looking then behind James? So that's interesting. And now I don't know when you actually saw that, because I'm very slow with these questions, Selma. So we people, if you did see anything by chance, let us know.
Yeah, I don't know if you're picking stuff up. So supposedly I've got a woman called Rose who we had to calm down when we first moved in because she was scaring the kids, and I'm happy to live with whatever. And I say I don't believe it's dead people, but then we get some evidence and things that are contrary. And someone who I believe very, very well told me that there. But yeah, we have poltergeist activity in this house, and we have an agreement that you don't upset the kids, and I'll leave you alone. But yeah, and it's quite, when we're talking about this stuff does happen. But my last podcast I recorded, if you listen, you can hear tapping and banging. I've had stuff even thrown at me while I'm recording. So yeah, it wouldn't surprise me. When I first met Ian and Jordan, I did an interview with them, and there was a massive crash behind them, and there was nothing there. So it wouldn't surprise me.
So just like when we talked about actually us as humans bringing the phenomena through by our intent and our belief, then you're talking about if you went somewhere and you wanted to get rid of an alleged spirit, a suggested spirit, or anything.
Yeah.
Just going with that belief system, it might not. Some people would go in, like, I don't know. Some people of faith might go in and say prayers or sprinkle holy water. I don't know, and it might not be none of those ingredients that are working. It could just be what's happening inside a person's mind that just convinces them we've done it now. It's gone.
Yes.
Does any of that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. If you look at if you're a Buddhist, then what's the point in getting the Catholic Church to come and do an exorcism, because it's not your belief system? But in the West, if you believe that they're the best exorcists, then the cross and holy water is what's going to make a difference. And in Buddhist culture, it's a Buddhist monk can do it, etc., etc. And if you don't believe in any of that, I use the traditional medieval techniques of first of all, human consciousness saying stop and removing that consent, and then salt and stuff like that, and all those type of stuff. But is it the salt itself, or is it the fact that I believe it's doing something? So I really do think it's your belief system that makes the difference.
Do you think a lot of people are coming around to that way of thinking now? Have you seen a shift in the way people are talking about not just UFOs, spirit, and everything? Do you think there's a difference way people are viewing it now?
I think we are. I think we've become so disconnected, even more so with the internet and screens and everything, that people are wanting to connect to something a bit more spiritual. And if you're not into religion, then you've got to search for something else, haven't you? Mm-hmm. And I really believe that having this stuff is to take you on a spiritual journey. And I don't mean that in maybe that hippie sense, but in a philosophical sense of, you know, if our reality doesn't exist as we perceive it, then why are we here? And what does it mean? And how can then you be a better person and do the best while you're here? So I think we are moving towards it. And we know for a fact that actually more people are going to standing stones than ever before for the last few hundred years, because they're wanting to reconnect to something tangible, real, and back to nature.
Yeah, it's strange, isn't it? I mean, I don't know how many people do it, but you're almost drawn to it. I've done it. When I go to Rudston, I don't sit there hugging it, but you touch the stone.
Yeah,
you kind of. I don't know. I don't think. Oh, I've never felt any energy from it, by the way. So I'm not saying that's why I do it. But you do want to. You feel like you want to connect with it. It's
Absolutely.
interesting.
Yeah, I've got a good story there, Paul.
Well, just before we do that, then let's another one here for Rhiannon. Replay the start of this video, and you can see a woman slink off behind James on the left of the screen. That's interesting. I'm just wondering, though. I'm not saying it is that for anybody because I didn't see it, but the cat's being. I know we can't mistake a cat for a woman, but
down here.
And look at that.
That's a lady as well. But yeah.
Oh, Bobster would make great friends with that. Your dog. You shouldn't call it that. What's her name?
Bean.
Right. Okay. The woman next door, you know, lovely woman. She's got 2 Jack Russells, and one of them never shuts up, and it's called Nutty. And I laugh every time I hear her say, "Shut it, Nutty," you know. But anyway, so what we're going to do? We're talking about this Rudston Monolith. Yeah.
Yes. So my friend Amelia came over from Finland doing a documentary about the paranormal and doing some investigations with me. And we went to Rudston, and we had a few hours there, and nothing happened, or so we thought. And we're packing up for the night. And when I got back to my car, every single one of the windows had been wound down in that car. Now, just for context, and we did it on camera. You go in, and I can't even turn on the car or do the windows unless my keys were in the car itself. And we parked right by the church. And obviously there's lights around, but it's dark. If you opened the door, you'd hear it. You'd see the car lit up, and the windows winding down go, you know, so we'd hear it. If you want a rational explanation, someone had crept up to me, pickpocketed my keys out my pocket without me noticing or seeing them, sneaked back, got in the car by unlocking it, and we didn't hear the clicks unlock for whatever reason, got in the car, turned the engine on, because you had to turn, it was a Ford EcoSport for anyone that's wondering, turned the engine on, not engine on, but started up the electrics, and then wound all those windows down without us seeing the lights on, hearing it, then locking it again, coming back, putting the keys back in my pocket. Now, that's your rational explanation, but that seems quite far-fetched to me. Some people said your battery's dying. I took it in and to be checked, said nothing wrong with it. And I know some cars you hold the keys down and it does it, but mine, we showed it on camera, you can't do that. So, yeah, that was at Rudston Monolith.
It's interesting, isn't it? And not at Rudston Monolith, but we came back after being up on cliff tops. So I'd have said back end of last year. There were me, Mark, Linny, Pete, and Mark came later than us. So when he would have said, he parked at side of me. But when we came back, all interior lights were on my car. All interior lights. I think there's one. There's 3. There's one near the mirror. There's one in the middle, and there's one at back. I can't work that one out. I says to Mark, "Well, they on when you came when you parked up?" He says, "No." So how they came on, I don't know. It weren't. This were when we're looking at it at a distance. It don't just flick on when I press key. Then another night, myself and Bob Brown. And jumps in car, we're ready to go home. And I've got a thing, me, about seatbelts. If people who leave seatbelt outside car and your bank door and you hear it clack on inside, it does annoy me. But I know people don't mean it. But anyway, door went bang. And I says, Bob, your seatbelt's outside. And he went, no, it isn't. So I thought, I didn't shout at him, but, it weren't. So we drove off. And as we're driving off, we obviously felt the wind. So Bob's window were down. So his passenger window were down. So you can think, right, I bet he's put it down. But we'd been up there for at least 3 hours. If you leave a window down and take your keys away, it's not a new car, it's an old Honda CRV. But it's the alarm system on it's great. If the alarm would have gone off.
Yes.
I can't lock the car and leave a window down. So window down. So that were odd. That weren't end of it. As we're driving out, so he's put his window up, we're sort of scratching his head. I can feel a draft, on my neck and sort of stop the car. Passenger window behind me was halfway down. Really odd. Can't explain that one. Not for people that think we're trying to say it's paranormal. I'm not. I'm just saying I can't explain it. I've no idea what the reason is with that. Let's have a look.
Amelia was really shook up as well in case something happened on the way back with the car, and we'd be stuck down. She was really shook up by it. But
you managed, obviously nothing happened. We're good.
Yeah, we got home all right.
Well, thank you for the recommendation. Truly recommend Wolfman's. Watched it yesterday. Cracking stuff, more than a little disturbing. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Thank you.
It's great fun.
Right. This about Mary. What's this? Linny, Mary might turn up with a cup of tea. Well, she has done, so I can see how late I am. With questions there, can't I? Sorry about that. Because we're not going to... What we got? I'm hoping there's a few more questions. See, Rick Allen's in, and I do have to ring you, Rick. I realise that, mate. I'm not doing it on purpose. I've just been absolutely pulled out with stuff to do, but I'm going to do a few interviews with Rick, and we'll get them up for you guys to listen to, because he's as interested in it as anybody I know when it comes to the subject of the cryptids. Let's have a look. Paul, you need to sew an article on your do an article on your house, so there's plenty to tuck into. I'm especially intrigued by the religious, what's that word, iconography, is it, that was embedded in the structure. Yeah, I know what you mean. And when we stripped the walls of this property, when we first got there, all around the staircase, which were probably 5 meters by 3 meters, all the way up to the top with this, but all the way around it at about 30-inch intervals, sort of 45 degrees as stairs went up and round. There were little bronze or copper gargoyles on the walls underneath wallpaper. I think that's what you're on about. And then in one of the bedrooms, when we stripped it, there were all sorts of things, pentagrams and all sorts of things on wall. And I think I've told you that Reverend Willis came wanting to bless the house, and we'd not asked him to come, but he arrived only within a week or 2 weeks of us being there. So yeah, it were interesting, and they'd been quite active, whoever had lived there prior to us, so yeah. Yeah, you could do something with that, I suppose. But I don't know. But now, just to jump back to that, it's 3 flats. Now, Bob's in top flat, Bob Brown, and he's well aware of some of the things that happen. Guy in middle flat, never told him. He might watch this. But what I'm meaning is he's a nice guy. There's no need to say anything that happened. The lady who were in it prior to him, she came to us one day, and she'd had a strange experience. So, we sort of... You don't think, I hope no happens, because no, it's bad. No, nothing overly terrifying's happened. Not to the people in there. All right, let's have a look. The inside of the cat's ear looked like a lady with her hair up. That's what I was thinking, Rhiannon. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. When you just catch cat to left of James, but yeah, we've solved it.
There you go.
We've solved it. So let's have a look. So here's Blue Shift. The phenomena loves to include things so childish that it's almost embarrassing to say this by design. What do you think?
Yeah, I completely agree. Like it's like we said earlier with the you were talking about that jelly blob kind of going along, and you know, if you say it to anyone, it sounds absolutely daft. But for you, experiencing it, it's there, isn't it? But
early hours of morning, we watched it. Yeah, we stood watching it, just wobbling in the darkness, moving up. And you know, over the road, and I did include it in Night People. Over the road, the guy that lived there and his wife, there's only his wife there now. He'd had a job where he damaged his lungs, so he couldn't sleep comfortable laying down. So he would sit in a lovely, comfortable chair downstairs, and go to bed. And this is just an example of things that happened. He says, and one night he said, I'm looking through these curtains. Curtains are open in the darkness. Damaged his lungs, but he's having a cigarette. And top window, he says, I can see balls of light. Says, and I thought, oh, maybe it's early hours at morning. I thought the girls had maybe got some kind of fancy light that they'd left on, but he'd been looking all night, just in darkness, looking out onto the street. And then one of the lights, he said, dropped down, and suddenly he could see it through net curtains in next room. And then it dropped down, and it were in living room downstairs. And you know, and he'd seen quite a few things. And obviously his wife still remembers that, because he went upstairs and got her, says, look at this. It became odd, obviously, when it goes through into the next room. Do you know what I mean? And they both watched it. So that's fascinating. It was quite active. I think that probably the activity died off when girls sort of left. So that energy were probably feeding some of it, you know?
Yeah.
But what Rob says about it being childish, almost amoeba-ish, he's right, isn't he, in some aspects?
It's very childlike, you know. Pan again and Loki. And I remember one fella rang me up, and he was like, I got loads of missed calls, gone, please, James, answer your phone and everything. And I ran him straight back. He said, I'm looking at a UFO. Like, come down now, come down. So I got in my car and drove straight to the spot he's there, and he said, it's gone. As soon as you came up here, it's gone. And he was like really upset because he thought I wouldn't believe him. And I was like, no, I believe you, but it is obviously for you to see, not for me. But he was worried that I would just think he was lying and not telling the truth.
Yeah, it's strange, isn't it? I see Lee's put that up, hit the like button. Thank you very much. And if you haven't done, do same if you visit James's channel, just hit the subscribe button as well, because you know, we've sat here and going on for a couple of hours of his time, and which I've enjoyed, by the way. I've enjoyed spending time with you guys and all your questions, and James. But it's absolutely free, and it's there somewhere on your device, phone, computer, or laptop. Press subscribe if you want. And there's the next one. Paul, where's the best place to read about or hear you talking about Mr. and Mrs. Tick? Nowhere, basically. I probably wish I'd never even written about them, to be honest with you. And they're in Night People, and you know, I debated whether I should write about them. And for the same reasons, I think for the same reasons that people who've spoken to me, and I'm sure James is the same, and you people in chat will have experienced similar. It's almost like when you start talking about things again, you think, have I woke this up? Am I going to have a repeat or a little taste of some of that again? And I don't want to. And yeah, they were frightening, to say the least. So I'm not bothered about covering that one. And if I did redo Night People for any other reason, I'd probably remove them, to be honest. Really, really thought about that. Let's see if we've got any more questions. All right, let's have a look. I've heard James talk about a mermaid witch monster called Jenny Greenteeth. Has he? He must have done. I just wanted to know what nightclub he met her in.
I know where that is. That's Tim.
Hey, stay safe here, James. Don't go that way.
No, that's Tim, and I think he's talking about one of his exes. Tim runs the Fortean Film Festival.
Okay,
a brilliant event. So and I'm going down to visit Tim soon. So yeah, I look forward to catching up with him down in Gloucester.
Jenny Greenteeth. Interesting, Tim. Thanks for that one. We've got Jenny Gallows, haven't we? You've heard the story of Jenny Gallows in Flamborough that you run round a few times, and that's a strange one. Maybe cover that one night. Let's have a look.
That's going to be a tulpa now and come real. I'm going to meet Jenny Greenteeth, the mermaid.
That's excellent. Right, Nigel Sheffield. Science will never solve or understand the phenomenon until they embrace the consciousness. Right, they're a good place for James to go here. Spirit energy, whatever label, the fact they don't know everything. So what do you think about consciousness and its role here then, James?
It's really interesting, his consciousness, because it's relatively new. They only started kind of studying it scientifically in the 90s. So we're still at a very kind of beginning point of science for it. And I covered on my podcast actually the last time about the time before about quantum collapse, and two people had one's a quantum physicist and one's a biologist, and they looked at potential quantum collapse occurs in the brain, and that's what consciousness is. But the problem is you can't prove it. You can't really prove anything what consciousness is. But the fact's like this computer that I'm speaking to now, when I'm not observing it, performs at a different rate of power than when I do observe it. So, consciousness does interact with everything and is, in essence, our very being, isn't it? So who's to say that, we're talking about whether it's all an illusion or not, or daydream, maybe it is, and maybe our consciousness is the only thing steering us through it. It's I think science is coming on more to this stuff, and there was a study done that was objects moving in a house, and they didn't go so far as calling it a haunted house. They called it a purported haunted house in its title, but they ruled out every other bit of phenomena and just measured that the movement of objects that was carried out by, they didn't call it a poltergeist either, they just said by some unexplained force. So science is coming onto it, but again, if you look at quantum theory, that's more mad than anything we can come up with in terms of paranormal, but they believe it's real. I saw one scientist saying that at the end of the universe, if you go as far as you can, we'll come to a wall that's just built up of visible mathematical equations. And that just sounds daft to me, but that's meant to be one of the top scientific minds in the world.
Fabulous. Okay, James, let's have a look at this. James, I believe some sightings are some sort of echo from the past, as they seem to go through the motions. Yeah, almost like tracings, aren't they? Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah, that's what I call a ghost. So people say, do I believe in ghosts? That's a ghost. And the one I always talk about, there's this hall near Leicester, and this is a perfect example. It's owned by English Heritage, and they've got a Tudor woman, and for centuries she's been seen walking down the hallway and walking through the wall. And it happened that often, even now, that English Heritage, who were there to preserve the building, knocked through that bit of wall and they found a Tudor doorway. Now, if they built another wall, down that corridor, she'd just do the same thing. It's just it's either the past bleeding through because the past is still going on, or it's an echo. Yeah, definitely.
So the one you're on about, there's no seeming awareness from the ghost.
No intelligent communication, never changes. It's the same thing. Continue. There's one in America, you can actually get tickets for it, and it's at this mansion where they were camped out during the American Civil War, and you buy your ticket, and they don't guarantee it happens every year, but 9 out of 10 times you line the hallway and the stairs, and you look at the door, and you hear the door open, a gunshot, and you hear the door open and close, although the door's still closed, and then someone run up the stairs. Same time, same date every year.
Yeah, I had a few. I've always got loads of accounts and reports to sort of share with listeners, and I've got a load today, but obviously we've not needed any of them. But there's one. I'll briefly touch on it because we'll do it in detail. But lived in a house where the door had been bricked up and the door had been put on the side, and they were sat watching TV with friends. And suddenly there's a big bang on the door where the door used to be. And the cats went to the door that's bricked up and plastered over where the door used to be. And they clearly said it was a door that were being knocked on. It's fascinating, isn't it? Like it's some kind of echoes in time. So it don't make us any closer to knowing truly what's happening, does it? But it's interesting.
We've got the great lady in Brompton, and I shared that, and it was amazing how many people got in touch with me who'd seen it. Exactly the same figure, the same spot.
Yeah, well, there's a building midpoint between Bridlington and Flamborough called Martin Hall, And I worked on Martin Hall years ago. I put the bistro roof on it. I don't know what it's used for now, to be honest with you. That building, it's still occupied, and it looks absolutely fabulous location. But the old guy who worked for the builders I was working for years, so to probably work there 30 odd years, he'd lock up on a night and he'd be there first thing in the morning. It's kind of dyed in the wool. If he'd have, I don't know, cut his head off, he'd have said name at builders somewhere like a stick of rock. Do you know what I mean? But what I'm saying is, one night, the next morning he came to us and says, I'm not locking up no more on my own. Never, ever. He says, big grand staircase going up the middle. Says, and he went to check everything was closed up. I'm not saying lights were on or they weren't on. I don't know because I weren't there. He said, but a black figure came down the stairs and just passed through him. He said it were ice cold. So I've fascinating stories. Do you know what I mean? I was tempted to sort of speak to people who owned it and see whether they'd let me do a short from it. They'd probably tell me to go away. You know what I mean? Because it's a big grand place, but it's just fascinating.
Yeah.
Let's just have we've got a few minutes left here, James. So, hi, James and Paul. I like Paul. Have a small. I thought he said he liked me. Sorry about that, Richard. I know what you mean, mate. Like Paul, I have small stones dropping in the house. The last one that happened, I actually saw. It came through out of the thin air and fell to the floor. Any ideas on what is happening?
Yeah, if you read that book Jot, there's cases of this with stones and with Bigfoot, and we have this, and they're sometimes warm to the touch as well. There's a really well documented case where there is a guy in prison, and there are stones just falling from the ceiling, but not like they're not from the ceiling, like an inch below, and just dropping down to the floor. There was a case in India a few years back where the police were called because someone kept throwing stones at the house, and they formed a line in the end and walked all the way out as far as any human could throw it, as far as any cannon could shoot a stone, and there was no one there throwing them. And even when they walked past it, these stones were coming from out of air at this house. Something to do with nature. We have it in Bigfoot as well, where they're like throwing stones and then they see Bigfoot sightings. So this is something, I think, some ancient spirit or anything. I think that I'd just tell it to stop. Be interesting though if you have the stones to have a look at them. And we were at one actually. I went in Northumberland, and with one of my exes, and she won't mind me telling you this because we had an audio recording, and I was picking something up in this chapel. I was like, "There's something here," and I'm trying to capture an EVP, so I'm just asking questions, and you can hear like dripping water, but there's nothing in there. And I said. And I said, oh, and this is and I can say her name, this is my girlfriend Jenny, and she doesn't believe in any of this at all. And next thing I hear this crack and a scream, and this stone flew right past her head. She said she felt the wind of the stone hit the wall and drop down. And then what was fascinating is this stone, we went outside and there wasn't any other stone like it for anywhere you could see. It was like shiny brown stone, not like any of the others in that area.
Did you save the stones, James? Do you save anything like that?
Yeah, but then I forget because I also collect rocks and fossils, so I forget which one it was. But yeah, I do. I'd love to see it. And have you ever picked one up and it's warm? That's what I'd like.
Yeah. These in Allway, I'm not going to get up now because we've only got a few minutes, but they're on its size of peas. And they're just hitting the laminate floor. You could hear them. Only time I really switched onto it was when we'd just gone to bed and I heard it on the floor. And when I opened all door, looked down all, there were one there. Because before that, you kind of never noticed. I don't mean our house is full of stones, but, you know, there's dog in and out and things, and you'd hear a click, and it's almost like a kettle switch going up. Do you know what I mean? You know, when they flick or a light switch. But I don't know whether that's what's happening there. We've got one question, Poltergeist. But I'm going to go down. We'll probably just skim past that one, Kingdale, because we've done loads on Poltergeist. Unless you've got to add to that, James, and just
we spoke a bit about that. I mean, Janet, if you see her as an adult now, she said, "I wish it never happened," and at the time, I didn't want it to happen. And that poor girl had a lot of trouble. She went into care for a while as well. But she now, even though that's something that she wants in the past and that, and she doesn't want anything to do with it, she will tell you that what occurred. If you've got Apple TV, if you haven't, it's worth just doing a month's free subscription. They've got a great reenactment with all the the audio and the recordings, and then they've got actors to play what they're actually saying. So everything in it's the actual recordings of the people that were part of that, and that's a brilliant remake.
Thank you, James. Just, are you okay for one more? That's all.
Yes, of course.
I
Yeah.
knew Stephen Howe, a well-known psychic, sadly no longer with us, wrote a book called Through the Eyes, Channeling Spirit in the Future. James probably, I'm putting that away as though we've done. James probably knows more about that than I do.
No, it sounds
Okay.
interesting. I'll put that one on my list.
I'm just looking here. Paul, is that Mary's cup? How did you guess? Yeah, that's her cup. Yeah, I get it. Oh, no, I guess who would ask the question? Yeah, Linny. Yeah. So I bet you've got one of them cups as well, Linny. Listen, we've got loads of questions here, but we're not going to get to them, people. And we've 2 hours sat with James, and it's just flown. I've got a few more questions to ask him of my own, which I've not needed to, which is always brilliant because that's down to you guys in chat. We've held over 300 people all night here, so I really appreciate your time. And what can I say, James? Thank you.
Thank you ever so much for having me on, and thank you everyone for watching. Appreciate it.
No, you're welcome. And would you come back in future?
Definitely, yeah. Talk about this stuff for fun. So
yeah. And we'll have another adventure soon in Raincliff, shall we?
That'd be fantastic. Yeah, let's go and try and find that pulse.
Yeah, absolutely. So everybody in chat, thank you very much for your support tonight. And we'll definitely see you next Sunday. I haven't planned to do another one in the week, but you never know. It's not some kind of trick. I just sort of had a bit of time and I thought I'd do one last Tuesday, but I've no plans this Tuesday. But no doubt things can change. Thanks for being with us, James. I really appreciated it. And good night. Is this an adventure or what? We don't need unexplained phenomena. I hope you guys are enjoying this journey we're taking you on. I know you come expecting to hear about big cats, cryptids, UFOs. We will touch on some of that, but I think it's worth sharing some of this with you, don't you? There's only 2 living souls up here today.
Because I can see it in my mind, I can see it in my head what I saw, but I can't describe.
Our eyes was closed, like a brightish light in my face, and I just felt paralysed.
Someone said there's something out there, so we had a look. It looked like a walnut. That's the only way I can describe it.
It was like it had loads of tiny little windows all over it, and it had lights in those windows, but not a light that illuminates.
Anyway, we were ushered into this lounge. This fella come in and said, whatever you saw was a weather effect.
And everything is deathly silent. There's no sea, there's no wind, there's no night noise, because there's foxes all over here. There's nothing.